I'm so happy because this is like the first legit interview I'm doing over my vlog. So thank you so much, Holly. Thank you. And I am still getting used to this. This is like I'm recording on over Zoom. So I'm just gonna throw a question over. So my
Yeah.
question is, I don't know if I ever really asked you, but like, why did you join the VJ Hunt? Okay, a little background to people who might be watching this is basically Holly is literally the last MTV VJ I worked with during my time working with MTV Asia. So you're like you'll always be my dear little sister. So I don't think I ever really asked you why did you join the VJ Hunt? Being the
Mhm.
person you are, because through the years we've gotten so much closer, and I know you so well. So I'm like, this is like the last thing I think you would ever do. But you entered the VJ Hunt, you won the VJ Hunt, and that's how you became like an MTV VJ at the time. So why did you join?
Yeah, so I think for me, I grew up watching MTV. I literally grew up watching you. All my time after school was secretly watching MTV because I wasn't allowed to. I grew up in a really religious family. But then, I saw that there's a VJ hunt and someone was like, "Oh, why don't you join? Why don't you sign up?" And, I actually thought to myself, there's no way I will win. No way I, of all people, will win. Because everyone else, they actually look like there's so much more TV material. And I thought to myself, let me just like try this for fun. Like, really, it was really just for fun and just literally to see how it goes. Let's see if they like me. And, I didn't think the prize would be a job. I thought I would just win the MTV VJ hunt. I didn't think I would actually end up becoming a VJ for a job for a couple of years. And so I think for me, it was purely like, let's just see if I stand a chance. Let's just see if I can, if I can win something. Because prior to this, I never won anything in my life. I never signed up for anything. I'm super risk adverse. I'm very shy. And so I think for me, it was literally, let's just see if I can have fun with this and if I can win something for the first time in my life.
That's so interesting because, okay, as you were telling me the reason behind it, it just dawned on me that a lot of times when we're in front of the camera, it's like there's like a different reason or like a different perception when people see us. Like for myself, it's like for myself, I forget that it's the people around me who I'm close to, like yourself or myself knowing you. We see a different part, a side of ourselves. I see that shy side of you. I see that introverted side of you. And as you've gotten to know me, you see a different side of me. But I forget that during the time when we're in front of the television, they don't see that side. People don't really see that side because we're actually working. We're having to deliver. So that's really it. So in a way, you were just kind of throwing yourself out there, not expecting anything.
Yeah, I really had zero expectations. And in fact, I was convinced there was no way I was going to win.
That with my time during MTV, that VJ hunt, that search was probably the most spontaneous, very quick competition that they ever had. It just came out of nowhere, and it was sort of like a bullet train. It was a super bullet train with the contestants and like the process and everything. Did you felt the same way?
I did. Yeah, I feel like I just signed up, and next thing you know, they were like, "Oh, you need to make these videos, you need to do these tasks." And it just happened really quick. And next thing you know, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a job. I have a new job."
Interestingly, when I look back to when you joined MTV, it was that sort of bridge coming into like the digital landscape, because it
Mhm.
was like
Yeah.
it was the first time that there was a search, there was like a VJ hunt, whereas like there was like digital elements to it, like what you just said, you had to send videos.
Yeah. And Facebook, you had to post on Facebook, get people to comment and like and vote for you. So it was very much ingrained in social media.
Yeah, it was like sort of the first kind of bridge into the whole influencer. And I mean, like today we have influencers, we have YouTubers. It's that whole part of where you had to be part of your own marketing in order to get
Yeah.
yourself as one of the contestants.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's
that
re-
was interesting.
that's how you came in. So what were your key takeaways after you got the job? I mean,
Mm.
because being the shy person you are, did it help you be more? I mean, like that period that you came that you hopped over and that bridge being able to work and be in front of the camera, did it help you come out of your shell a bit?
I think yes. I think in different ways. I feel like I personally really had to push myself because, for example, some other people who I auditioned with or other people who are already in the industry, they already had that confidence or they had the skills. They knew how to speak in front of a camera. They knew how to interact when they were on a stage. But for me, it was all brand new. And because I had already signed the contract, it was like, okay, I kind of need to learn as I go. And, it was really tough because I had a lot of people, for example, some people were like, oh, you're the worst MTV VJ ever that's ever been. You have such an annoying voice, all those kind of things. And for me, because I never had any media experience, it was brand new. I didn't know that, that criticism was part of the role. So I think I had to overcome a lot of like self-doubt, a lot of opinions on what other people were saying and remind myself that, you know what, I'm a beginner. I'm learning this for the first time in my life and I am so far from perfect. Probably never will attain perfection, but that's okay because for me, like, this is more about learning, right? How to step into different parts of myself. And yeah, overcome things that terrified me. And I used to cry before we had to do live 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 shows because I was so afraid of being in front of people.
Uh, I knew you were, yeah, I knew you had anxiety, like, that anxiety because you were nervous. I really never knew that how much anxiety you had. Um, and I didn't realize how, with the that stage that you entered into to MTV and you were dealing with that social realm. I think it's different from me because I come at a time when I didn't have to deal with social media. I mean, there was
Yeah.
criticism, but it was like it was so far off from for far off. It was more like I would get the criticism maybe from like, the team as to how to get better, but it I realized that the pressure of people having being opinionated is so much more with you because of the fact that you came in during that bridge where, it was the digital landscape. People could come into the social medias to directly be opinionated or attack right away. That's so much more pressure. And you were saying that you had to switch and go like, look, I'm new, I'm a beginner. Was that something you were able to internally come up with and kind of tell yourself that, or did you have like support?
So during that time, that was before I started therapy and counseling. So it was really something I feel like I had to come up with, to remind myself that when I got criticism or, when I was told that, hey, just, you're just moving so slowly in terms of your progression. Yeah, it was just something, I think the only way of like, reminding myself that, you know what, I'm brand new. I'm not your typical TV host, not your typical, person who's been in the media for many years. It doesn't come naturally for me, but it's a challenge and just, yeah, something I had to keep reminding myself. I think I just had to come up with it spontaneously to keep me going.
That's definitely a lot of courage, and I think that's a lot of insight for to this day for a lot of people out there who might be on social. It doesn't even matter if you're an influencer or not. It's like, the average person does get criticized, or people having their opinions right or wrong. And I think it's really important to be able to look into yourself and go like, hey, well, at the end of the day, it's like I I can't listen to this. I need to be able
Yeah.
to find myself in this situation and not have it affect me. So I didn't know I knew you went through a lot. I didn't know the depth of it. So I just think it took a lot of courage to go through what you went through during that period. So to lighten things, should you throw me a question? We're doing a flip session, by
Yeah.
the way. So we're alternating asking questions here.
Yeah, so for me, I'm actually curious, how did you even get the gig at MTV? Because as far as I started watching MTV, you were just there. You were just there every single day on every single show and every single commercial. So for me, I kind of feel like it feels like you were born into MTV, but there had to be a starting point, right? When was it? How was it that you got your gig at MTV?
Oh my God, you're throwing it back to me. MTV for me, basically, similar to you, it's like it's the epitome of a place you want to work at. It has to be MTV. And I think going back to when I was growing up, we didn't have social media. It wasn't the digital landscape. So you lived with your television, and then music with the representation of like the latest what's the latest music out there, the latest genre, like MTV, the VJs, the hosts were like they were like mini gods and they were like rock
Yeah,
stars. So
yeah.
basically, I would tune into MTV and religiously watch MTV just like you, um, after school or go back because it's you have a platform that basically merges visuals with sound. So it was always exciting to see the latest music video, and it wasn't instantaneous like now. Basically, now you get a whole album on like Spotify or Apple. Back then, it's like before before the next um song's going to be released or the next music video is going to be released, you have to wait a while. So like you're
Yeah.
immersed in that one song, that one music video. So I was working for a music television in Thailand before MTV Asia came over to expand in Asia. And before there was Channel V, when we look back then, there was like, all the music channels are kind of like bundled together. So there was like a local music channel in Thailand called Thai Sky. That's where I started off being a host because I remember growing up on MTV, I just loved watching music channels. So my first experience working for a music channel was like, I was so green. I was like, and I somehow found my way to that channel, meaning I started off modeling in Thailand. And then at the time, I'm like, I want to work for, I think if I'm going to bridge into the industry, I want to work for something I feel that I would be comfortable in and I want to learn. So I was looking for this music channel, and one day I found it and I walked in, and I just like asked if I could apply. And I think the receptionist was like the receptionist went upstairs, and I think at that time I started to model in model, and I was in magazines a lot. Sorry, let me have a little coffee. I was seen in a lot of magazines. I think I was up and coming. I was really new. So she went upstairs, and then it turns out that they were really excited because the producers were actually looking for me. So it was just like I was just lucky. So that's how I got my first start in music television. But after I started with Thai Sky, and then the channel's called Smile TV, I always wanted to work for MTV. And it was just always in my mind. So I'm like, if MTV ever comes to Thailand or ever comes to Asia, that's the place I need to go. So I would just tell everyone that because like back then I was just like I was a spaz. I was so hyper. And I think you probably experienced a little of that working together with me. That it's like I have this energy about me. So it's like I was like a super spaz. I like would see like agencies, modeling agencies, or like talent agencies, and I'm like, if MTV comes to town, please tell me I'm the first one at
Yeah.
the casting. And what I did was back then we had VHS tapes because like things were recorded differently. So I actually, when MTV eventually made their way to Asia, I watched our our sort of pioneer veteran hosts like Mike Kasem, Nadia, Sarah Sahan, who have become like my really close friends to this day, which is like surreal for me. And at that time, I was watching them, and I actually sent VHS tapes of my working for a music channel prior here in Thailand to MTV Asia, but I don't think it ever got there, or it got lost because they never got back to me. And then a year later or 2 years later, they had like a VJ hunt like yours. So
Ah,
they did. So I flew over from here to Singapore for the VJ hunt. And I remember bringing my cousin with me. I was so excited. I'm like, okay. And this is interesting how we're sharing our stories because it's kind of similar in a way, but it's like different times.
mhm.
Because for you, it's like you did it, you did via social media, and then like you're like, okay, you know what? I think our stories are similar because it came from the excitement from watching the television, from watching the channel.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I flew down and I was so bummed because they were looking for a Mandarin VJ.
Okay.
Like, so I flew down and it's like I remember going to the I think I don't know if I went to the office or something, and then it's just like they were looking for a Mandarin VJ. They weren't looking for like, um they weren't looking for an English speaking VJ. And I was just like, I was so bummed. I was so excited but bummed at the same time, and that didn't pan out. And then like a year or so later, they had a casting. They had like
Mm.
an open casting, and one of the agencies that I kind of threw it out there if there was ever like a a search or a casting, like let me know. So I went to that one. I was the very last person. I heard from the team afterwards, when I eventually made it to Singapore, that there was over 100 people who went to that casting, that search. It was at Hard Rock Cafe, and I remember I was the very last person because they told me that. They're like, you're the very last person here. And then I just had so much energy. I didn't know they felt the energy. I felt it in me. I had so much energy. And I think that's what they told me stood out for them. And then I went to two more castings, which people didn't know. So to share with you what my process was like was, once I got a call back, basically they let me know I've been selected through the casting process of the one they did in Thailand, and they would like to fly me down to Singapore. So so they said, you haven't got the job yet. You're going to be tested in Singapore. So I flew down to Singapore, and I was there with three other contestants. Um, and I think I'm not sure if this is similar to your experience. Like, I mean, please share with me. But I was there for 1 week, and then the three other contestants. I think there was one from the Philippines, there was myself from Thailand, and there was another one from Indonesia, I think. And we were alternated on the shows that were actually live with the
Wow.
yes, with the existing hosts at the time.
Okay.
So you can imagine if you were crying, you can imagine what I was going through.
Wow. Yeah, no, that must have been intimidating.
It was intimidating because here I am seeing the people I've watched, and I have to get over that I've been watching and kind of growing with, and then kind of just being super excited, but then trying to tone down my super excitement and then being able to deliver live. So it was like very overwhelming. And then that was the process for me. And then now I realize that in a way we both were kind of thrown in the deep end. You were thrown in the
Yeah.
deep end in a sense of winning, and then being able to get the job, and then having to deal with stuff that you dealt with. And then
Yeah. Literally the day after winning, it's like, oh, go to this conference, host this event. Everything just started immediately.
yours was like, yeah. And I think for me, I was thrown in deep end in in the it's sort of like the casting process. So that first week was like, that's how they tested you. It's basically if you're able to handle yourself with the experienced and existing hosts on air
Mm.
live. And then that was like a week process. And after that week process, then I flew back, and I didn't even know anything for another month. They didn't even let me know.
Wow.
Yeah, it was only after a month that they said, oh, by the way, you passed the second casting. So I don't, the third one was like, I think I did an interview and then eventually I was able, I landed being a host, a VJ for the local market for MTV, MTV in Thailand. They didn't have an MTV Thailand yet. They had some shows for Thailand. So I wasn't even part of the main roster of VJs in Singapore yet. It was only
So
like
were
a
you
year.
hosting in Thai?
Yeah, I spoke in Thai. And I, interestingly, I had like a different voice back then as a host. I had a higher range. I was like, "Hi, I'm Matt." It was like really squeaky. I look back at it and I'm like, oh, I was like, my voice is pretty annoying. So yeah, and okay, and why how did I cross over to I'm sorry, I'm asking my you should be asking the questions, not me.
No, no, it's all relevant. It's all connected.
Okay, how did I cross over to Asia eventually, to Singapore, to be based in Singapore?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that the shows I did for Thailand crossed over, even though it was in Thai, that people loved the show and they recognized me. So I was
Mm,
recognized from that one or I did like it's called Bangkok Jam, and they recognized me and they the ratings for the show was so high that they felt they needed to test me out for they needed to bring me down more often for the shows in Singapore and a lot and then there was so much going on. There was so much shows at the time that sometimes the hosts, the VJs, they were offline to like the award show or there's like so many events. So I was a filler. I was like, I wasn't the main host in Singapore yet. I was just a filler, but I was
you had the
happy.
backup.
I was happy to be a backup. I'm like, it's cool. I'll be a backup anytime. So I was a backup for a good year. Yeah.
Wow. But you were like, whatever, right? Whatever it takes, sign me up.
Yeah, well, I was like, whatever it takes because I was just so excited. I just wanted to do more shows. I wanted to do more, 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 more. That's where I was coming from. And then eventually they offered me like a full-time contract to move
Mm.
to Singapore. And then when I moved to Singapore, then my gosh, it was just like it was just I was just there for the longest time hosting, being a VJ for like so many different generations.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one thing interesting, about you is that a lot of people might come in with the mindset like, I want to be the star of the entire channel immediately. But for you, it was kind of like, I'm just so excited. I'm so willing to, let me start out somewhere and let me just show up. Even if I'm even if I'm the backup, right? I'm just willing to come and have a good time. And it's so interesting that, you came from that mindset and that mindset actually was the cornerstone of your success.
That's yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah. I think that's sort of different from some of the mindset nowadays where it's like
Yeah.
a lot of talents coming into the social realm. Um, oh my gosh, it says your free meeting will end in 10 minutes. It's okay. We'll knock off and we'll come back in again, given if you have time. Um,
Yeah.
what was I gonna say? Yeah, I think the mindset nowadays for a lot of people coming in, and I mean, like for obvious reasons, is like I want to monetize. So I think
Yeah.
that's why we have a lot of different types of personalities doing content where it's like, I mean, I, I'm sure you see it. I see it. Everyone sees it. Like people are going for what's gonna earn them the likes and subscribers, and sometimes
Mm,
it should come from a different place. But I know there's like a lot of content creators where it comes from the heart. It comes from like a different place as well.
yeah, absolutely. I think in every industry, right? There are different personalities in every
Yeah,
single realm.
yeah. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna. Oh, you go ahead.
I go ahead. Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is a really important question, but I want to know when you started at MTV, right? Did you ever think that you'd be one of, I mean, I think you're one of the most well-known MTV VJs ever with such longevity. Almost every single person I know knows Ut. There's no one I know who has never heard of Ut. Did you think you would end up so much longevity in the business and being like, one of the most well-known faces of MTV?
Um, I don't know. I don't think it was something that when I crossed over to Singapore and was one of the main VJs there, it wasn't something that was conscious in my mind that I'm going to, have this longevity. Because I would every so couple of years, like reporters will be like, how long do you think you'll stay with the channel? Or do you think you'll be doing this forever? And
Yeah.
I would always, my answer would be like, I'll know when it's time to, to move on or not do it
Mhm.
anymore. But one of the things I would always hear when I first joined, because back in the day when I was joined, MTV was always about the girls. It was always
Yeah.
about the VJs, like Nadia, Sarah, Sonia. They were in the forefront of the channel. They were they were the ones who were leading the channel. So that's what I kept on hearing over and over and over again from people around me, especially like, the people inside MTV that, the guys, they have like, they have their lifetime on the channel, like, is shelved within like a few years. They would always say that, or I would hear that randomly. And I remember kind of with your inner voice when what you shared with me when you were going through your criticism that, I'm a beginner and, this is new to me. I think for me, it's like my inner voice was, no, um, break conventions. That's not going to happen with me. I think, uh, female VJs and male VJs, it doesn't matter if you're female or male, we can be in the forefront and we can be equally as strong. So that was always in my head. It was always in my head that, no, I'm not going to fall into this, like, fall into this um, opinion that um, the male VJs are going to be in the background. So I think that was like a drive for me to get out there and get out there, not so much to like to be known, but get out there to go like, I can be as strong as like, as Nadia, as Sonia. I'm not gonna take this. So
Yeah.
so that's where
I like that.
that's where that drive came from. That drive of like, just getting out there, having fun with my job, wanting to represent. And I come from like a similar growing up. I'm really similar to you, which you already know. We've talked so much. It's like I grew up really shy. I grew up like
Mhm.
not being part of the popular group, the cool group. So I think what broke me out of my shell was eventually entering the entertainment industry, and I slowly used the entertainment industry and being a host as my avenue to not be shy, to be kind of be open. And I wanted to be a representation of, what, I wasn't the cool kid growing up, so I'm going to show that not being cool is cool. That was so
Yeah, me too. Me too.
really.
Yeah. I like for me it was like I want to show that, the person who may seem like she could never make it, is not the most driven, not the most like out there person can also make it.
That's this is so interesting that we're having this conversation. I mean, we have so many different conversations, but I think when it comes to work and like, the how we got here and stuff, we kind of put that aside because we're talking about like where we are at and we're just hanging out. But wow, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's the parallels that we have together. Basically, that's that's a representation of myself as a host, as a VJ, through that longevity, is to show like you can be anyone. You can be you don't have to fit into any certain mold to have to be able to have the opportunities you have to be on TV. So I think that was my drive, and that's so interesting that that parallels with yours too.
I know I feel like the more I get to know you, even though we've known each other for so long, it's like the more similarities I find out we have.
I think sometimes when you have that sync and that synergy, it comes from like different places, but you know, it's just like it's just kind of like a comfortable knowing synergy that you have, yet
Yeah.
you don't really know the background behind it. It's really interesting. So I'm gonna fast forward this really quickly to where you are now. I mean, you moved after MTV, you moved over to the US. So how long were you there for?
So I was there for close to 5 years, if I'm not wrong.
So what did you learn about yourself in those 5 years? I mean, I know it
Mm,
could be like a long conversation, but I mean, like, just like,
yeah. Yeah, I think I learned that, when I stepped away from MTV, I realized that um I had a lot of skills that I didn't have before MTV. I was able to, for example, at school, I became really good at public speaking. I became really good at presenting in front of my class when everyone would be like super nervous or, really afraid. For me, it was like, oh, okay, actually I can do this right now. And I really enjoy it. And yeah, and I guess I learned like, new ways of relating to people. Also, being in the media, I realized that you do get special attention. But when I walked away and I went to the US, like no one knew me. I was just like another student. And it was like a lot of just it felt like meeting people for the first time and being able to introduce myself in a new way and have people know me in a brand new slate. So in a way, I felt like I got to live like a whole nother life.
so you were able to kind of grow, you had like another growth in being who you are, but not so much
Yeah.
as like Holly, having won the VJ hunt or whatever. It was more like a personal growth. So you were able to use some of the experience that you had from your work, your job here, and then use that in a new chapter of your life being there. And you
Yeah.
like I followed you and you were going through, different processes, which is a big part of you, in terms of like, really looking after yourself, in terms of being healthy and like, and being healthy, taking care of yourself physically and also what you were eating too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I did when I moved there? I made it a point. I didn't tell anyone that I was an MTV VJ. So I just thought it'd be interesting to just start brand new, start on a clean slate. So that was really a good experience to be like, hey, this is just me, me with all these skills I've learned, but not associating it to my past or my experiences. And yeah, taking care of my body. I got sober when I moved to the US. So that was really great. I started eating healthy. Yeah, it just felt like a new time of having a lot of self-care, a lot of um, me time in a way.
So where are you now? You're working for corporate because we were talking about this.
Yeah, I'm working for corporate, so I think we might get cut off soon, so we can always restart. But I work in a corporate job. I love it so much. I feel like, everything, a lot of what I'm capable of is because of my experience at MTV in terms of I do a lot of master classes at work. I do a lot of presenting, a lot of interacting with other people. And, there's no fear. There's no fear because I feel like I already went through so much fear when I was speaking to like thousands of people on a stage.
You know what I find interesting? I'm more comfortable being on a bigger stage than I am in a smaller stage. I get more
Oh,
anxiety.
absolutely. Yeah.
Are you the same?
Yeah, because with a smaller stage, you feel like people can look you in the eye, right? And they're judging you. But when it comes to a big crowd, it's like, oh, here's a sea of people. I can't see anyone.
So as you can see, this is super raw. I mean, as we're doing this interview, it's like, okay, your free trial is coming up at 20 minutes. Oh, and it's so funny. We were both looking at the um, corner left. Oh, 1 minute left. Okay, we gotta do this quickly. So going back to where you are now with corporate and everything. So you're saying that, okay, now you're in the corporate world, everything is like, it's really fluid for you because of all your experience, all your chapters in your life from like, being from having worked at MTV and then being in the States. And then that's where you are now. You're back in Asia.
I am. I'm back in Singapore and I work in corporate. And when I graduated from school, I actually went to fashion school, but I realized I wasn't interested in fashion. So I got into talent acquisition in a corporate company. And yeah, it's just so interesting because, when I think about it, I was like, would I ever go back to media? And no, I would never go back there. But I feel like everything I learned has helped me to really thrive in a corporate environment, right? Like when it comes to being in media, you need to be on time for your shoots, you need to be ready, you need to know what you're saying, and all that is so relevant in corporate, and it just makes it so easy. And there's a lot of human interaction speaking in front of people, doing presentations where I realize a lot of people I know they have a lot of fear, but I think because we had that experience, it is just something that is so fluid and it's actually really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's something I can relate to. And I think one of the things that people might not know, because with the fact that I've been on TV for television for so long, I think a lot of people don't know that I also have been in and out of corporate. And that's something we relate to, and that's something I relate to you in regards to understanding how it is being in working full time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, for yourself, right? Like, how do you feel like your skills have transferred over into the corporate space?
Interestingly, I think I have a different dynamic than yours when I'm in corporate, because I remember like the last, not the last, I think previously I was in a corporate position. It was like a high level position, and I remember the one of like the directors, he had this comment and he goes like, it's so interesting, Kun At, like when you're, because like at times when we would have events, I would have to be on stage. But when it comes to the everyday management, or like, going to work, he goes, I find it interesting because there's as if there's two different parallels to you. Like when we see you in the workplace on a day-to-day basis, you're very you're very low key, you're very
Mhm.
soft spoken. But then when you're on stage, you're a different person. And it was interesting getting his reflection on it, because I do have two different parallels to myself. It's like, I by nature, we know this about each other. It's like, we have that shy side, that introverted side. And for me, it's like when I'm in the workplace, it's changed through the years of being in different types of roles and like corporate positions. But I tend to go inward. When I'm in the workplace, I'm more quiet and I'm more soft
Mm.
spoken. And then if I'm on stage, something clicks and I'm like more, I'm more comfortable in a different sense. So it's interesting to hear him say that. So I guess for me it's like there's two different parallels. I'm starting to learn to kind of merge those parallels where there's like an equilibrium. But before, I think it was like this. It was basically, you
Yeah.
see this other side where basically I'm not walking around like Ut, or Ut being that persona is like, being that very confident host that you see on TV. And it's not that I'm not confident. It's like an inner. It's like I've gone in internal. If you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate with you because, I am very introverted at work. I do my work very quietly. If I need to do a presentation, I feel like that's when I really light up, my energy comes up. But apart from that, on a day-to-day basis, I'm pretty quiet. I keep to myself. I mean, I like people, but at the same time, I am focused on doing my work. But, you know, I'm not like the loudest person in the room. I'm not the person who is partying all the time. So I really, really relate to you. When there's something where I need to share on a public level, I there's an energy that comes up, right? That awakens. But then when that's done, I go back to the silence of doing my work in quiet.
So that's the similarities that we would have in terms of like working in the corporate world. So yeah, interesting. I learn about myself along the way. Each time I'm in and out of corporate, how there's like two different like sort of hats. It's not like kind of mask I wear. It's like, there's that I revert to being that person that's like that's the core. And then there's that other side where you have to that you utilize from your experience. So yeah. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so we should wrap this up because we've had a super long session. I was texting Holly while we were like,
Not
wait,
longer than expected.
while we were waiting for the first recording to convert, and I'm like, I thought we are just going to do a 20-minute session, and this turns out to be like almost an hour.
Yeah, I guess whenever we meet, we always end up talking for so long. And even now, we can't help.
Yeah. But I think this is great. This is what I really wanted to uh to be able to share with people, to have them see like a little bit of who we are, where we are now, and a little insight into our personality. So thank you so much, Holly. Thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for thinking about me, letting me be the first person. You're truly someone who's like so close to my heart. And even though we don't talk all the time, it's really, I feel like even though we work together, you've become someone who I cherish as a friend. And it's just amazing how we have so much in common and we keep learning more about each other as our friendship progresses. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think those are the best relationships. You keep on growing with each other. All right.
Absolutely.
You have a great day. I know I'll be seeing you soon.
Yes, for sure. See you.